This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about Trump, Bitcoin, and the swamp. And you'll have to excuse my voice. I'm suffering from a bit of a head cold. I want to begin with this aerial picture that gives you a good perspective where the rooftop shooter was standing relative to Trump on stage, just 130 yards away and with a straight line of sight, which is quite incompetent of Secret Service. I agree with Geiger Capital here. Best case scenario, this was a complete and total failure by the Secret Service. They're clueless and essentially incompetent. Worst case scenarios, we just witnessed a failed setup by people inside of our own government to assassinate a U.S. president akin to JFK. I think comparisons with the attempted shooting of President Ronald Reagan in the 1980s are also relevant. We can see how competent Secret Service was back then, how they immediately jumped into place. And if we compare that with many of the videos that are coming out from Saturday, we can see that current Secret Service can't holster weapons, gear falling to the ground, erratic, fearful movements, no show of force, composure, and I'd have to agree with this post that DEI, Secret Service, does make presidents less safe. And whoever put a female 5'5" Secret Service agent on a 6'3" president should lose their job immediately. This is just basic common sense. We should also remember in our prayers and in our thoughts the Trump rally attendee who was murdered by one of the bullets. This is Corey Comparatori, who unfortunately was killed on Saturday. If we take a look at the prediction markets, we can see that Trump has surged ahead even further since the assassination attempt. Now 71% chance that he's going to win the election and a 56% chance that he's even going to win the popular vote, which is very rare for Republicans. These are the kind of polls that I would trust because there's $258 million riding on this one, $47 million riding on this. This is quite different from MSNBC just calling someone up in their living room. These are real people betting millions of dollars on the outcome. And it does seem clear that if the election were held today, certainly Trump would win by a landslide akin to what Reagan did to Carter in 1980. We can see that Bitcoin also moving up sharply since the assassination attempt. And it's hard to know how much of this to attribute to that and the prospects of a Trump victory, but that is what Bitcoin's doing now. So how well did our professionally trained journalists do in the heat of the moment? Were they able to protect all of us from all of those terrible online conspiracy theories and all that misleading citizen journalism that plagues X and Twitter? Supposedly, what looks like the talking point in all the newsrooms which were in communication with each other was not to talk about an assassination attempt or gunshots, but to just talk about loud noises. So Trump leaves rally after loud noises erupt. This is the Washington Post. We have Yahoo News and the Associated Press. Trump whisked off stage in Pennsylvania after loud noises rang through the crowd. We have the loud noises as well. Cleveland 19 News. Trump whisked off stage in Pennsylvania after loud noises rang through the crowd. And this is my favorite headline, of course. Trump pumps fist after Secret Service rushes him off stage after incident. This is the quality of our journalism these days. And ABC News, Trump escorted off stage by Secret Service during rally after loud noises ring out in the crowd. And of course, my favorite, Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at a rally, trying to make it equivalent to Biden falling, Trump getting shot in the head versus Biden walking upstairs. I think this was a pretty good meme. If you're enjoying this video so far, I just ask you to help to support the channel. Click the subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video. And because this is a more political video, be sure to leave something of substance and to be polite. And also share this video with a friend or family member. And then my favorite, of course, from my own beloved Sunday Denver Post, which is a complete piece of garbage. Gunman dies in attack. That was their headline, which is totally bizarre. This is why you should not trust the mainstream media and articles like this, why inflation can actually be good for everyday Americans and bad for rich people. It's actually the exact opposite, as you would expect. I agree with Inverse Kramer here. Thank God Elon bought Twitter, so we were able to get some real news in real time. The downside to this, of course, is Elon's the same guy who wants to put a chip in your brain and who's building the world's most advanced spy satellite swarm for the U.S. government. So I don't always know what to make of Elon, but I was certainly grateful for Twitter X over the weekend. And I have to say, Trump showed incredible courage after his narrow brush with death. If you think you'd show similar courage in that situation, you've probably never been shot at. And I have to say as well, seeing Trump's courage, seeing his bloody face, gave me serious William Wallace vibes. Maybe this is just a masculine thing and made me want to grab my sword and head out on the streets. Here's William Wallace. Great movie if you haven't seen it. And of course, here's the iconic photo of Trump, which is going to go down in the history books for his courage and his composure at the time. More thoughts on Trump. Trump is a fiat billionaire to the core. He's often an ill-mannered bore, and he probably hasn't read a book in 40 years. But I still think there's something refreshing about a moderate Democrat from the 1990s who never changed his views, even as he watched the Overton window shift so far to the left. And I'm also always amused by how frustrated white paternalistic leftists get when Black, Hispanic, and Latino Americans, mostly male, express their admiration for Trump. I have to say as well, in spite of his lack of book learning, Trump's intuitions have often been spot on. He has a real gift here. When he spoke about Germany's fatal reliance on Russian gas and oil and the German politicians laughed at him, it was Trump who was correct. Also, the absurdity of being dependent on Chinese factories for U.S. national defense products. This is crazy, and I think Trump was one of the first to highlight it. The stupidity of having an open border paired with a welfare state and poor election voter controls is another one. Trump is also a brilliant campaigner and one of the modern masters of political rhetoric. He has the ability to inspire and lead in an era of boring bureaucrats and petty technocrats. And for a fat old man who eats too much Kentucky Fried Chicken, he has tremendous energy and drive. He's definitely the Teflon Don. You can prosecute him, you can say really bad things about him, you can jail him, you can even shoot at him, but you only end up making him more popular. And my favorite is the only way to preserve democracy is by eliminating the most popular politician in America, the people who say things like this. It really tells you about their motivation. They don't really care about the people. Trump is one of the very few U.S. politicians, I believe, who's not suffering from extremely low testosterone levels as well, and it shows. He really is from a different generation with all the good and all the bad that brings. Unfortunately, Trump is not much of an operator when it comes to the tedious work needed to build political consensus and get Congress to turn the president's agendas into law. To be fair to Trump, the permanent government employees who reside in the swamp did a pretty good job of hamstringing every single thing he tried to do during his first administration, but it was also Trump's fault as well. In his first term, Trump didn't drain the swamp. Instead, he actually hired the swamp, mostly in the form of swamp creatures from Goldman Sachs like Steve Douchebag Mnuchin as head of the Treasury, people like Gary Cohn from Goldman Sachs as well. So what about the 2024 election? I think it's probably smart to vote for politicians who promise to do good things for Bitcoiners. It's probably smarter than voting for politicians like Elizabeth Warren who hate you and want to confiscate your Bitcoin stash and jail you. I could see Trump taking office and doing some really good things for Bitcoiners in the first few months. I could also unfortunately see Trump subsequently doing a complete about-face a few months later when his advisors tell him that there's a serious currency crisis and that Bitcoin is destroying the dollar and he needs to do something to stop Bitcoin. Trump's first term doesn't give me much hope that he will accomplish much, but even benign neglect of Bitcoin and Bitcoiners would be refreshing at this point after the endless hostility of the Biden administration. There's a further bonus to Trump winning. We'll get to watch quote-unquote journalists and quote-unquote educators and quote-unquote economists and quote-unquote experts and other unproductive and dishonest people gnash their teeth endlessly. They really hate and fear Trump. The deep state seems to fear him as well, so that's a big plus about voting for him. I'm also looking forward to continuing to laugh at all the stupid brainwashed people who think that Trump is literally the second coming of Adolf Hitler. If Hitler had a daughter, he probably wouldn't have let her marry Jared Kushner, and he would not have pardoned Jared Kushner's father. Advice for President Trump's second term, and you have to let me have a little fun here. Please wreak as much havoc as possible. Try to actually drain the swamp this time, and good luck with that. You can start by firing 95% of federal government employees, like Malay's doing in Argentina. You can shut down the FDA, the DEA, and the Department of Education. You can shutter the IRS and the CIA, the FBI, and the ATF, and all these other three-letter agencies. You can start by vetoing all bills that fund foreign proxy wars. You can end the Fed and replace it with a strategic Bitcoin reserve akin to Fort Knox for gold. And you can end all capital gains taxes on Bitcoin so we can use it freely as the money that it clearly is. You can make America great again by fighting hard for sound money, states' rights, and U.S. constitutional protections, and do everything you can, Trump, to shrink the federal government. I'm not holding my breath. My expectations are extremely low. I don't think that you can eliminate the swamp through voting anymore. It's just gotten too big and powerful. But I would be happy to be pleasantly surprised for once. I think the most important step, as I've said many times on this channel, that you can take is voting with your money first by moving all of your US dollars into Bitcoin, thereby undermining the federal government's money printers. You vote with your feet and you vote with your money first, and then after that you can feel free to vote in elections and hope and and pray that the voting machines and the ballot counting mechanisms are honest. Too bad that they probably are not. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.